Anticipation.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Empower Hour. I hope this is another week full of fireworks.
Yay!
I know, right? I know. And I'll be like, no fireworks there, no fireworks there, no fireworks there.
Oh, based on
If
the
you're
planetary alignment, it will be
Yeah.
another 3 weeks of fireworks.
Okay, so it's going to be another 3 weeks of fireworks. If you're new to Empower Hour, because today I actually made it so that anybody on or off Facebook could see this. Welcome. This is a show where we talk about topics that empower you in life. And you are here with Coach Jim. You're also here with Coach Angelito and Coach Amy. And I always start the show with a question. And the question for today is, what is the coolest thing that has happened to you in the last 7 days? The coolest thing. And we'll start with Coach Angelito because A goes first.
Yay! Well, Amy also is.
Oh,
A,
Amy should have gone first because
that
A
doesn't
and
really
is
work
before.
out.
So, Coach Amy, what is the coolest thing to have?
Okay, go ahead. I don't know who's supposed to go first now. I am so.
You
Either
go
one of you.
first. You go first.
Well,
Please
okay,
go
yes.
first so I
So,
can
yeah,
buy time to think.
I never thought I would say this, but the coolest thing, because I was just explaining to Jim and Amy before we went live that what I was doing for the past couple of days, which was caregiving for my parents, was the cause of my panic attacks and anxiety and mental breakdowns like a couple of years ago before we got caregivers in. But now I actually got to do it from a different perspective as a son and just as a visitor. And I really enjoyed every moment of it, from the moment I woke up to the moment that I put them to bed. It was so nice holding hands with my mom, and because there's usually always a caregiver around, so I never really get that one-on-one moment. So like it was really, really nice.
That's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, it was super cool.
I'll go next so that Coach Amy can have lots and lots of time. I have to tell you, the coolest thing that's happened in the last 7 days is, for those of you who listen regularly, I'm writing a book and I'm actually getting input from people I know. I have done one, like an interview, because somebody's like, I don't know that I can answer your questions. And I got the most beautiful backstory. And then last night I read another person is like, I'm so sorry, it's been taking me so long. I just don't know how to put this. And this human literally poured her heart out. It is one of the most beautiful stories. And it makes me like, I want to get the book out now, but I want to get these stories in. It makes me so happy that this book is coming together as beautifully as it is. And all of these humans are sharing the most beautiful stories about their life and about the aspect that the book is about. So that is the coolest thing to happen to me in the last 7 days.
All of that time, I still got nothing.
Wow.
Well, while Amy keeps thinking, can you tell us about what the book is about? Let's buy her some more time.
So
I think
yeah,
it's
so
gonna help, but
I
keep
will.
trying.
Yeah, so the thing is last November I discovered that I have a biological son, and I am writing a book because one of the things I found out is there is little or no support, especially for men, but for people. And there's a lot more if you're adopted, but if you've just discovered that you have a biological offspring, or potentially you've discovered a biological parent or your biological parents, if you're adopted, it comes with a whole new set of dilemma on how to actually create effective communication. So the book is about how to create effective communication and how to really empower yourself with this brand new relationship. Because if it's like me, his mother knew all along. I've since found out that his mother knew all along. And all like she could have known the moment she got pregnant, she could have reached out and she never did. And in the 10-minute conversation that I had with her, it was very evident that she knew and she just wanted to keep it from me. And so, you know, it's like when you have a son that's 36, it's no longer, I am his biological father. But creating a relationship, it really, there's a whole different, almost a whole new set of things that you have to go through. So that's what the book is about.
Nice.
Very cool.
Amy.
I still got nothing. I'm trying to tune into why I have nothing. And I think it is that I don't see moments as better or worse anymore. There are moments. And that question I stumble on, because what is the, I can't remember what you even said now. It's like, what was the most best thing or something along those lines? Clearly it wasn't that, because that's dreadful English. And nothing springs to mind, because my moments are my moments. And my daughter came out the other day. I was on a call. I can't even remember which call it was. And I said something and she said, good call or bad call? I said, I haven't decided yet. It's just, it's a call. And even like there's a training that I've just ducked out of to come in and do this recording with you guys. Good call or bad call? I don't know. I don't know that it's a for me call. Like I feel like I will go back and I'll get a little bit more of a taste, and maybe they'll have got into some content now after an hour and a half, which is driving me insane. Just get into the content. But good call or bad call? I don't know. Best or worst? I don't know. There's a metaphor my mentor shared years ago that she's stolen from somewhere else about a man with a horse and a son. I don't know if you guys have heard it. But the horse breaks its leg. And they say, is it, you can probably tell it better than me, Jim, because I'm going to butcher it if you've heard it. But that I was like, is this good or bad? And he says, it's neat. I don't know. And then
the first one is the horse runs away, right? And it's like, well, is it good or bad? And it says, I don't know. And then the horse comes back and it brought 4 other wild horses with it. And then the next day, the son breaks his leg. And they asked the farmer and said, is it good or bad? And he says, I don't know yet. And then 2 days later, the military comes through and they take all the eligible males, but since he has a broken leg, and this story keeps going on with what looks like bad things that potentially happened. And then quite literally, they end up being blessings. So that's a beautiful, I remember that story. Yes.
And so I think that's kind of the state that I'm in. I'm like, I don't want to pick out what was the best thing, because maybe it was the worst thing. And I don't want to label the worst thing because maybe it was the best thing. And so I think that's what my brain was doing in that moment, was the not wanting to go into those labels.
Wow. That's
I
don't even know how I'm going to segue. Usually I can take something and I can segue into today's topic, but with that one, it's like, but here's today's topic. Today's topic is, are you owning the life you create? And it's actually, that's a beautiful example, because here's the thing. It's, as Amy has described it, it's neither good nor bad. With that little cup of hers, there's that little cup. It's neither good nor
my
bad.
cup is good. I'll own my cup is good.
But is the cup good, or is what's inside it good?
A bit of both.
Right? So are you owning the life you create? And if this is your first time listening, reflect for a moment upon your life. Every aspect of your life is what you are creating right now. Now, when I say that to my incredibly, my coachy panel, coachy panel, what do you guys see when I say, are you owning the life you create?
For me, it's a yes and no. There are parts that I am so willing to own, and there are parts that I am so willing to take responsibility for, to take accountability for, and to say, I did this, I created this, which I know to be true. And there are other parts where it is way more fun for me to blame, justify, or defend, and this has nothing to do with me, and why is this happening to me? I definitely play both sides of that depending on the moment.
Wow.
I think for me, I'm that is a question that I've answered for myself a while ago, that yes, including all of the negative things that have happened in my life that I used to say happened to me, and have realized since then that they've happened for me. And yeah, like, so I take full ownership of it, and I understand about 90% of the time, and like Amy, there's that 10% where it's just like, mm-mm. But and then I have to remember that again, that if I'm going to choose to take full ownership, I'm going to take ownership. But I can't help to think about the person watching this, and I'm not laughing. I'm just saying, where that laugh came from is because I looked at Amy. I was like, because of our conversation last week, I was like, the person, I'm tuning into the person now, of the person watching this, who's like, how do you explain,
Oh,
how do you explain all those
ex-
people who died in Turkey and
how do you
Syria?
explain cancer?
How do you explain that? Like, what are you going to say
Right?
to those people? Should they take ownership for that? That,
How do
like,
you
I can get
explain,
spiritual, but I don't want to have to explain that to people.
right? How do you explain someone who knows she's pregnant and for 36 years didn't tell? And when she found out, we had a 10-minute conversation and she was just seething mad that it's been discovered.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know if it's my job or anyone's job to explain it to anyone else, but I know for me, I have an understanding, so I speak for me.
And it's quite interesting because I think at times that understanding, it really becomes an advanced spiritual conversation. Because I have gotten up in workshops and literally said, I believe that not only did I create my cancer, I nurtured it. I nurtured it not being discovered. I nurtured the situation in which it was found. And then not only did I nurture the removal of the organ, but after that, I worked with my spiritual teacher to literally go in and to heal the root of my cancer so that it doesn't come back again. Because my spiritual teacher at the time, the first time I said it, she said what she said. We talked about the situation, and she literally described 3 people in my life that were a direct impact on the tumor. And ever since I did the spiritual work to clear it out, those 3 people are not in my life anymore.
Hmm.
So that's one of the ways. And at times we live in a time that it is tough to really own the life you create, right? If you take a look at 3 years ago when we were just going into COVID, like, who would have thought that 3 years later, we're in a new world?
Mm.
And some people are still stuck in the rut that was created in isolation. Other people have moved. I mean, my coaching practice went fully online. I now do everything online. I'm in the process of doing the final design on a new coaching process, and I'm creating everything.
Mm.
Amy, go ahead.
The thought, I was just, Angelito and I playing chicken with each other. The thought that arose in my mind, because I think this does become a spiritual conversation. And one of the biggest obstacles with the spiritual truths is trying to apply them to the physical reality. And so when
That's
we
a
can
good point.
separate spiritual truths from physical reality, we get a different experience. The other thought that popped up for me is that while I frequently fall into justifying, blaming, defending, I don't even want to think that it's 50-50. Like, I don't know what that percentage would be. In those moments, I am surrounded by people that encourage me to own the defense, the justification, the blaming. And in owning that I am defending, justifying, and blaming, I step back into taking ownership of my life. And so it's not, for me, this isn't about giving up, defending, blaming, justifying. It's in those moments. I have several people in my corner and we have a code. It's like, I'm going to go below the line. So we were taught below the line and above the line, which is a reasonably common coaching model, but for anyone not familiar with it, above the line is ownership, accountability, and responsibility, and below the line is defensiveness, justification, and blame. And we will each say to each other, I'm going below the line. So we own and take responsibility for and choose accountability for going below the line and blaming, justifying, and defending. And so it then creates this weird, it's like, okay, well, you're blaming, justifying, and defending, and yet you're taking ownership of that. So are you above the line or are you below the line? But we have this space in which we can be human from my perspective and share, you know what, I just want to blame everybody else for this situation right now. But that's me owning it. I know I want to blame everybody else, and I'm going to just duck below. I'm going to blame everybody else, but I'm owning that I'm blaming. I recognize that I'm blaming. And in that moment, there is an element of me that's still taking responsibility. And I get that that's a bit of a mind fuck. Like the
Boy,
circular nature of that.
That is a mind intercourse.
Oh no, I think that's very clear. That like it's actually leaves me feeling very empowered hearing that I have a choice. I feel like it expands my awareness that I have a choice to own it or not, and be okay whether I own it or not. And in a way, that's kind of owning it, right?
Yeah, it is the owning it. And it gives us that freedom, because we are all human. There are going to be moments where we want to blame, we want to defend, we want to justify, we want to come in from that angle. And to have the space of owning that we are human and we want that, has us still owning that we create our own life without having to give up those indulgences. And there's a time and a place for it. My accountability buddy, I'll say I'm going below the line, and she'll say, you've got 7 minutes and 33 seconds. And she'll set a timer. Like, there is this space where it's like, great, you can do whatever you want for the next 7 minutes. And then I'm going to start reframing you. And then I'm going to start encouraging you to step back into your best life. And we have that agreement, which is beautiful.
Right. Well, I want to go back to my my cancer analogy and just see where that plays out into that. Because quite literally, I think that was one of the karmic lessons I brought in to this life. On the same note, when they got the tumor out, they dated it. And where I was working at the time was a facility that processed spent nuclear material for the US Navy. And I was at a place that there are times, and there were especially times where they stored the yellow powder, that I literally was in a facility getting bombarded by all of this radiation. And I think I was in that facility one of those days, and one of those little things hit one of my cells, mutated it to the point that it began the cancer. And you want to know something? I got up that morning, I chose to go into work. When I interviewed for that job, I knew the risks I was taking. It is surprising to me the number of people that I worked at that facility that are now dead from cancer. It was when I announced mine to a few people, they gave me a list of a half a dozen people who had died from cancer that I worked with at the time. I got to own that I created that. I chose to work at that facility.
Well, the question is, when did you create it? Yeah, sorry, Amy, go ahead.
That's okay. I was going to say, I imagine there is a part of you that would like to blame the people around you. How dare they have that? How dare the things not be? And maybe there's not that part of you. Maybe you're more evolved than me. For me, in that situation, there would be a part of me that would want to drop into a little bit of blame, a little bit of justification. And I think for people listening, the permission to do that is so important, because and we have to still own that we're coming from that place of blame and defensiveness and justification, rather than coming from the more it happened because it happened.
Yeah, see, there's not a part of me that holds, like, that's not my view. And I've had, on the same note, the severe trauma that occurred to me as a child. I own that. And I'm glad it was me that had that happen and not one of my siblings. I have the spiritual fortitude to take it especially the two after me, with the thing that happened to me happened to my youngest sister also, but she's also a strong spirit.
See, I subscribe to the belief that we all decide everything that we're going to experience here on earth before we come here, including all of the contracts that we make with each other as souls. That Amy and I had the agreement before we came here that this last week was the day we were going to have an amazing chat, and like the simplest things we cross, the people we cross in our lives, whose paths we cross, the things that we experience, it's all like we all plan it out before we come here. And you're like, I really subscribe to that, and it really helped me in to a certain extent forgive the things that happened to me, accept what happened to me in the past, and so I can process it. Again, that's so easy to say once you're out of it and you're in my position now and I'm loving life. But when I'm in the thick of it, it's really difficult to subscribe to that belief.
Man, right? Because go ahead, Amy. Go
No,
ahead.
you go, Jim.
I'm gonna say.
You go.
I know, right? We're gonna rock, paper, scissors this, baby. When we're in the thick of it, I've gotten anymore that when I'm in the thick of it, and this has taken years. So if some of you are listening to this for the first time and it's like, oh, those, it's just a bunch of
Listening to
spiritual
it for the third
gobbledygook.
time. Sorry.
Yeah. It's like it has taken me years to come to a space of peace over my past trauma and literally see it as perfect. And I define perfect far different than most people in the world. When I'm working with my one-on-one clients and we get to talking about what is perfect in life, and to me, what is perfect is life is everything that is perfect and everything that is imperfect. And it is the ultimate acceptance of that has taken me years to get there. And I am at a point now, and I've lived it to where sometimes I look back and it's like, well, doesn't everybody? And it's like, and I know everybody doesn't think that way. But as I develop, it's like, what if it all is perfect? What if it's perfect that I have a son that I didn't know about? What if it's perfect that his mother chose never to tell me and chose to keep it from my son? What if it's perfect that 6 months after the man who raised him died, I came back into my life. I came back into his life, even though he's been looking since 2012 to figure out who his biological father is.
Circles back to the horse story. It makes so much sense.
I mean, it really, yeah. And I mean, how perfect of you to bring the horse story, that was the perfect segue.
I think that the horse story is definitely one of the pieces that I hold on to. If I can link back to what Angelito was just saying, and I do believe there is divine timing. Again, I come from that spiritual place of we decided, but it's not necessarily what would happen. It was more what we would gain from it. So I don't know if either of you have read The Little Soul in the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh.
Oh,
it is one of the most beautiful stories. It's about 11 minutes. Google it on YouTube. There is a reader that reads it, and she just reads it beautifully.
Would you post that link up after the show today?
Yeah, it is one of the most beautiful stories, and in it is the little soul talking to God before he comes down to earth, and there's a whole pile in it. But the piece that jumped out is this moment where another soul makes the commitment to go into the darkness and become heavy to allow the little soul to experience forgiveness. Because unless we are hurt, unless we are experiencing something that warrants that, we can't have forgiveness. And so this little soul says, I will become who you need to forgive.
Yeah.
And so it's not that the experience is defined, it's just that we're going to give you an opportunity to learn forgiveness or compassion or all of these wonderful things that we can be in this existence. And the little soul says, why would you do that? And it's filled with the capacity to tap into I'm going to do this for you because I love you. So the most hurtful things are done from a spiritual perspective, from this place of love. And he says, how will you do it? He says, I don't know, but we'll work something out in the moment. And it's this beautiful revelation. It is one of the tools that I have used when I've worked with people. I don't normally work with people in deep trauma anymore. I tend to work with coaches and change makers wanting to grow their business. But when I was working with people who had significant traumas, it was always a video I would recommend, not necessarily straight off. It does need a little bit of warming into, because it is a big spiritual space, and validating people where they're at, meeting people where they're at, allowing them to step into and be open to hearing that other perspective is key.
Mm-hmm.
Once they were open to that other perspective, that was always a tool, since it was shared with me by a coach. So my coach shared it with me, and I now pay that forward. It's such a beautiful reflection, and taking what you said about, like, we chose this as we came into this world. We chose the archetypes we were going to embody. We chose the moments coming through. I was chatting with a client last night, and we were talking about human design, which is my current obsession.
Understatement.
Yeah, understatement of the year. She said to me, does it matter if someone's had a cesarean section? And my answer in that moment was no, because as we're choosing what we're coming into, we know the time we're going to be born. She's like, but my cesarean was planned. I said, I've worked in hospitals. I have seen planned cesareans delayed up to a week because the hospital is overtaken by some other surgical thing, or the surgical floor is shut down because of an infection. Like, there's a whole pile of reasons. That baby is going to be born when that baby is going to be born, and no amount of planning, even with the I'm going to have a cesarean. I've seen babies come 7 weeks early that were planned Caesars because the mum went into pregnancy distress, for want of better language, and my nursing background comes out, and I realize I can bring way too much jargon here. So that moment of birth is happening, and it was chosen before we came down. And she's like, well, what would have happened if he'd been born at a different time? I said, well, he'd be a different person, and it's almost irrelevant to contemplate, because the probability of him being born at that time is now 100%. It's happened. It's done. The probability of that woman hiding from you that you had a child, Jim, is 100%. We can indulge all kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
But if it's been and done, the probability is 100%. And I've got visions of, I don't know if either of you watched Dark Angel, but I've got visions of an episode of that coming to mind. It's an old, like, it's something Michael and I were watching when we first moved in together. So it's probably like 25 years old.
Oh, wow.
That's old.
Watching it.
Not on Netflix.
I don't think it is on Netflix, unfortunately. It's one of my favorite TV series. And
Dark
it's finished
Angel.
on Dark, D-A-R-K, Angel. And it finished on a cliffhanger, and they're not going to do it now. It's 20 years on. So heads up, if you're going to watch it, you're going to get to a cliffhanger and you're going to be left in the lurch. But it's one of my favorites. In one of those episodes, they're talking about probabilities. So one of the characters has the ability to see into the future using heuristics, I think it is. And it's literally just being able to calculate the probabilities. His brain has been genetically engineered to be able to
that's fun.
See the probabilities. It is, like I say, one of my favorites. But they get to this moment in this episode with the guy that can see into the future, and there's a chocolate bar that's melted into the computer, and it shorts out the electrical system, and they're saved because the chocolate bar shorts out the electrical system in the computer. And he says, do you know what the probability of this moment is? And she doesn't have that skill. And she's like, no, I got no clue. And he said, 100%, we're here, aren't we? And I think that's one of the philosophical points that I took from that show. It's like, this moment right now, what is the probability of this moment? And this moment is 100%. We're here. And so, yeah, that's one of my other philosophies.
That's deep.
Love it.
That's deep. Yeah.
Yeah. You asked for fireworks and passion. You're getting it.
I love,
I love
and
these
it's,
conversations.
you know, here's the thing. Each of us is a coach. And as the coach that we are, each of us is owning the life we create.
Mm,
If for whatever reason,
mostly.
of all of the millions, I heard a thing that there was 5 million podcasts, and I'm sure, so there must be at least another that
Oh
many
my gosh,
live
really?
broadcasts. So if
5
you are
million.
listening to this broadcast, you are
You are meant to
owning the
be here.
life you create. And how perfect that you are here listening to this right now.
This
It's
was for
really-
you.
It is absolutely for you. It's really interesting. I just got a call with somebody else, and one of the things that they said, so I knew that I was going to stay for about 45 minutes and then I was going to leave. And we opened with them saying, if you leave, you will miss out on the bit that you're meant to hear. And I thought, that's not the way it works.
That's
And
not the way it
here I'm
works.
going to hear what I am meant to hear. And when I leave, I'm going to go and I'm going to access what I need to. And then I'm going to go back to that after we finish this conversation. And I'm going to get exactly what I need. This scarcity that they were bringing in. And instantly I'm like, yeah. So they're like, don't click the leave button. You'll eject and you'll fall to the ground and you'll crash and you'll never have freedom. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure my clicking the leave button is right now how I'm going to create freedom. But if you're listening to this, this is for you right now.
Mhm.
And if you click leave right now and you click X and go, oh my God, these weird people, they're talking about horses and stars falling and weird human design stuff, and we're not for you, that's okay.
Yeah, that's
Something-
perfect.
Something will be for you. Find that. And if you're listening to us and going, oh my God, I love these people, then we are for you, and hang out with us.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
scarcity in this for me. There is an abundance of, we end up where we are meant to be, and the probability of it happening is the 100%. And we either own it and we love it, or we don't own it and we probably hate it. And sometimes we own it and we hate it, and sometimes we don't own it and we love it. And all 4 of those are available because I have to do the full Cartesian
Right.
coordinates. But whatever it is you're experiencing, it's yours, and you get to, the irony of the call, which was all about sovereignty and making your own decisions, and then this guilt, shame of if you
Oh my
leave.
gosh. How can you, when I hear that guilt and shaming that gets brought into online courses, I'm just like, no, it's funny because I look at the fact that we are 3 coaches. Each of us has a different specific area. And I will say, since I know
broad area.
or well, but it's still, oh my
what?
gosh. Oh
I
my
said
God. Never, up.
broad area. I was challenging the specific and the generalist specialist.
That's why I didn't hear it.
Oh, I know. She is specifically a multi-passionista.
But apparently
She is
I was meant to ask
specific,
again so that I could hear it.
right?
Oh,
But it's like it's funny because if you are listening to this and you'll get something out of it, you're in the perfect place for you. If you're listening to it, and it's like these 3, they're loons, you're also in the perfect place for you. One has to accept, I just keep coming back to, if they were to tell you, the minute you leave, that's what you're going to miss. I'd be like, it's the other side of the coin. It's like, whenever I listen to a live thing, there was a seminar a few weeks back on an area that I'm really interested in. The parts that I had an errand to run that had to be run, so I missed a part of it. And I went back and listened to the re-recording, and I'm like, didn't miss anything. Like it was actually okay.
And they were
that's all slimy.
Recording. It was exceptionally slimy. And I think we come from such a different perspective. My clients last night, so I started recording Monday morning musings, talking through the human design stuff. And I was sharing with them last night, and it's all time-stamped. And I'm so super proud of myself for having the chapters time-stamped on YouTube. It is the easiest thing ever to do, because all you've got to do is put the timestamps in and it does it for you. But it looks really super fancy and looks really cool. Anyway, one of the clients, she's like, I'm going to watch just these 2 bits. I'm like, great. If that's the 2 bits that you need, go forth, watch them. The other client, who is a woman of my, I mean, they both are women of my own heart, but the other client, she's like, I'm going to watch all of it, but completely out of sequence. I'm going to watch this bit first, and then I'm going to watch that bit. And I'm like, that's exactly what I do. It's what I do with books as well. So I have a couple of mentors who over the years have told me you have to read a book from front to back in sequence, in order. The way I read books is I pick them up. I may read the introduction, but generally I just flick to somewhere in the middle, or I go to the back and then I go back and backfill what I need to know. I very rarely read the complete book because I know I'm going to pick it up, I'm going to open it, and I'm going to get what I need in that moment. And then I can move on to other bits. And sometimes I reckon I've probably read the same page in a book 20 times and still the message is like, it's like this message is needing to come. But we have to do everything linearly. So for anyone tuning into this right now, you're tuning in. We've talked about really cool stuff, and I encourage you, go back and watch the rest of it. But you don't have to. You're going to hear what you need to hear in this moment.
The moment.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's
agree.
where we stand out. All three of us stand out as coaches because we don't come from a space of I am the only one that can fix you, or a space of if you don't work with me, you're not going to be able to create freedom. If you don't work with me, you'll find someone else to create freedom with. If you do work with me, I'm going to help you create a life you love.
And I think it's about like empowering people to take ownership of their own. That's why we do what we do, is because we empower them to take ownership of including their decisions.
Right.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah, you
part of it.
choose how much of this flight you want to be
I'm
on.
not
And
gonna
if you
decide
want to
for
leave
you.
early,
Yeah.
leave early. And I'm certainly not going to embed shame, guilt, or fear in someone who wants to decide to opt out early. Come play for as much as you can.
Exactly. And we live in such a unique world.
Mm.
Like this world that's opening up, you can either become successful in the opportunity it presents you. And there's some people that are very empowered just to stay the victim in the circumstances that surround them. You're never going to get that with we three. I mean, me, I tell you, it's interesting, right? You said earlier that you don't work. I love deep trauma. Deep trauma, there is a richness in working with people to actually have them heal deep trauma. As I open this new program, there is going to be, because I was thinking, I was actually talking to somebody and they're like, well, you could use this communication for anything, to build this with anything. Yeah, you could, right? But I am right now focusing on the people that are finding that, you know, whether you're adoptees, whether you know or you suspect that you one of your parents or both of your parents are not who they seem to be. When you find that biological person, there is an art to creating empowered conversation, and it may bring up some stuff. And it's always the perfect time to heal the past wounding.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing. It's like, well, it's not the same thing. Trauma's trauma. And I mean, I honor you for taking on that path and helping people, freeing people of that. Mine is a little bit more fun with what I like to think of it as fun, although the hell that my people are in they're doing work that they don't like to do. And in terms of in the context of taking ownership, it's like taking ownership of can you imagine the people speaking of ownership, there are people in this world who go into a job that they hate every single day, doing something that they don't like. They know that it's soul depleting, soul sucking, yet they keep repeating it over and over and over. Is that taking ownership? Or is that, what is it? Like, what is it if you're not taking ownership is the question,
so for
right?
me,
Like,
that's the below the line. It's the defense, the justification, and the excuses, and the blaming everybody else for it.
And where does that lead you?
Well, generally into misery and depression.
A life of incredible misery.
More of the same, and an ending of regret, right? So that's the thing. It's like, you liberate people from trauma. I liberate people from work that they hate. And Amy liberates people from confusion and disarray and like living a life that is soul sucking, right? Like,
for me, it's the liberation. So the conversation I had with someone yesterday, and I don't specifically only work with multi-passionistas, though I love it, because the freedom in that space. So she's like, I need to find my one thing for business. I'm like, no, you don't. So instantly I looked at her chart. She had her, there was so much conditioning there. I have worked in deep trauma. I like the deep trauma. It is easy to see the transformation in deep trauma. I prefer to work with the subtle traumas, the things that didn't have that clear defining moment. So for myself, one of the breaks that I made, and I've shared about this before on the show, is when I did stand-up comedy. And it was challenging a very subtle, discreet belief that had been planted in me that I wasn't funny. And I then lived out that worst fear on stage, and I broke through and I had that moment. But it's those subtle, repetitive, insidious, you would write it off. It's like, oh, your parents told you weren't funny, so what? Like, and I know that I wouldn't get that from either of you, but it's such a minor thing compared to someone that was sexually abused by their parents or someone that was physically abused, and those bigger capital T traumas versus the little traumas. Those moments had me emotionally suppress. And so for me, the definition of trauma that I stole from one of my mentors is any moment where we don't fully express the emotion. And it then gets bottled up inside us. And there's some really easy moments to see where we didn't express our emotions fully. And they're big and they're easy to spot.
What are those self-inflicted traumas?
They could be self-inflicted traumas, but they could be you were abused as a child. They could be
a teacher told you were stupid, or a human of authority said, boy, you're a dumb one.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there is, it's funny.
And it's normally a single defining
Subtle
moment
trauma.
and it's easy to see versus the subtle traumas. It took me 20 years to recognize that my family had been saying the same thing to me every day because it was so ingrained. It was so habitual that I didn't even see that it was out of the ordinary. Those out of the ordinary moments are easy to spot, but the continual repetition moments, they're the ones, and particularly the subtle ones, like the big ones, like being physically abused every day, which I have deep compassion for, and the sexual abuse and all of they're big ones, and society spots them a mile away these days. But the you're not funny is such a subtle trauma, and it's one that I've had responses of, just get over it. And why did you buy into that? And for me, that's where the magic is.
It's funny because to me, there is, because I used to ask this in workshops. I did a lot of work in recovery, and I would ask this, which one is the worst trauma? Somebody who has been sexually abused, or somebody who is told daily that they are not funny? And the answer is the worst trauma is the one that each specific person received for them. That is the worst trauma because that is the one that impacted you. And the deeper you understand that, the easier it is for you to create a life where that is something. It may pop up, but it doesn't have that emotional hold it once held over you. You literally get a level of freedom that you do not have when you're literally still thinking, I'm not funny at all, or I don't trust, fill in the blank.
But that took an awareness, right? What if someone is not aware
took an understanding.
of their trauma, right?
To me, it goes beyond awareness to really having to understand it. Because I think we're all aware that we have had things happen during our lifetime that create, whether it's trauma or drama, little t, little d, big D. But the deeper you understand how you create this human experience, the easier it is for you to heal through and beyond that.
I think you raise a really valid point that awareness has to come first. I didn't realize until I was in the midst of I was in a facilitator training. I was learning how to facilitate more effectively, and I didn't realize how profound that pattern from my family had been, and my acceptance of that because I could have rejected that. Like there are plenty of people that heard similar things every day and they didn't buy into it. There's plenty of other things that I heard that I didn't buy into. And it did, for whatever reason, I bought into that one. It wasn't until I was in the middle of doing something else that I realized it was there. And that's why I no longer work with people that are aware of their traumas, because the people that are aware of their traumas, yes, they need help to move forward and step into the understanding. It's the people that don't have the awareness and they're trying to build a business and they're stumbling and they're struggling for some reason. And it's in that moment that I know that I can help, because I can spot what's going on and I can use tools to uncover it. Yesterday, the lady I was speaking to, it was a very basic human design reading, and there was 2 or 3 things that she shared, and I leveraged human design and all of my other models and frameworks, of which there are many. There's 2 or 3 things that she shared about why she was struggling to build her business, and I could point to exactly what that was. She had no awareness of the deeper cause, and for me, that's the purpose of coaching. It's my client, and my clients that have been working with me for years know this inside out. They'll come with a problem and I don't coach the problem, because the problem they think they have is not the problem that is holding them back. If they can articulate the problem, they can come up with a solution. It's the problem that they're not aware of. That's the one that's holding them back. It's the piece that's underneath all of that. And like you say, Jim, it's not that traumatic moment. And again, I don't want to dismiss the traumatic moment. The traumatic moment was traumatic. It's not the traumatic moment that was the issue. It's the meaning that we then bring into it. And and they're all unconscious. And that's why we work with coaches. That's why we have people reflect back to us, because what we know isn't enough. And I think this is what you mean by understanding. For me, I use a different language, Jim, but it's the awareness of the problem isn't enough. It's the understanding of the deeper root cause is where the transformation happens. I'd use a different word than understanding, but it's just semantics at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to all of everything you guys are saying, and then I think about the entire marketing industry of how we're all forced into these little subtle traumas. Look around. Like, how many times can you count just driving down the road, being told everywhere you look that you're not thin enough, your skin is not the right color, your eyes are not the right color, you don't smell the right way, like you're not wearing the right clothes, like we're not good enough. So marketing in itself, and I'm a part of that industry, and I do my part, and we're all doing our part to make things right. And help people from that. But in a way, like, we're all being forced into these subtle traumas, and having that awareness to see that that is not the truth for each and every one of us is really important.
And marketing is where it plays out. Marketing is where marketing is where we step into this space of, you've now got to go out there, you've got to be all of you, you've got to make sure you're attracting people, and all of our insecurities are going to play out in that space. The 2 biggest transformations I've had, one was at the facilitation training with the stand-up comedy stuff, that's what that led to, and the other was a marketing training. And I had the biggest emotional shift in that space because I had to own my awesomeness. And that was something that I'd always been told not to do. Don't speak out about what you're good at. Don't own who you are. Make sure you fit in and conform and be this and be that. And marketing for me is one of the biggest areas of transformation. And it's one where people don't know that that's what they're coming in for. They think they're coming to learn how to market their business, because I have an arm of my business that is marketing. I have an arm of my business that's services. I have an arm that's like I have several different arms. I have 9 pillars at this point. But it's those, and in terms of marketing, we market to what they know they need or what they think they need. And then we help them with what they truly need. And in marketing, it's owning our awesomeness, at least from my perspective. I don't know if your perspective is different.
Even as the marketer side, the one doing the marketing, like, I remember when I first started doing vlogs, before vlogging was a term, like before 2007, actually, when YouTube launched, I was doing travel vlogs. I was like doing it Anthony Bourdain style. And I remember someone telling me, not verbatim, like, who do you think you are? Like,
Mm.
why are you showing these people? And then it just so happened at around that time, as I was around a lot of people who were not having the best time in life. And for me to like show this part of my life that's like super cool and fun and sunny and adventure, like, and then starting to hear that stuff from people like, who do you think you are? Affected
Yeah.
my own marketing, affected my own me being my awesome, like sharing my awesomeness and my light and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then it took years for me to get back on track, like with the vlogging, with the videos, and being comfortable back on like whatever. But that affected me. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy because I didn't take ownership of it. So, and now I do.
which is why
But-
it's so key to have people that support us, which is why our conversation last week went so weird, because I felt in that moment I didn't feel supported, and you guys are my people that support me. And Angelito, you and I have talked this through and navigated through this, but in that moment where, and I know it wasn't what you meant, but it's like, you've got to soften that. I'm like, I'm not going to be told how to deliver my message anymore. And that is me owning, this is who I am. And when we spoke about it and looked at the different perspectives we were coming from and the filters, and we are now closer from that. But having those people, there are going to be people that are going to tell us to tone it down and question, who are you to be saying this? I had that from someone in the human design world this week. Who are you to know all this stuff? The guy that created human design was on the Ibiza island, I'm guessing either stoned or high or out of his mind. Like, this is not a clean mind that create, and clean is the wrong word, but this is not. And I'm just like,
pure
well,
mind, maybe.
well, I think it probably was pure, but he didn't do all of the research and the stuff. I mean, he learned all this stuff and then compiled it together. I'm like, why is his random epiphany any better than my random epiphany? And I will now own that. And so, but I got back the, who are you? And Ra says, and I'm like, I don't really care.
Well, that's
I
what
am
innovation's
me.
all about.
And anybody that, and it was, and it's funny because we all, I still do this. I don't know, I'm not alone. There'll be other people that relate. I don't know whether you two will. But there was 30 comments saying, oh my God, this is amazing. The one that I remember was the one that questioned who I was. And
But
I've
that's
got,
our, yeah. But it's
our
good
pattern.
to it's good to see that, because when you can see that and let that go, that shows you the power of your transformation. I mean, you know, we all grow. One of the things about owning the life you create is also owning your growth. Because
Yes.
if you take a look at a video, I'm sure you could go back to each one of us 5 years ago, or if you take a look at an interaction that occurred 5 years ago, and if somebody holds you to the person you used to be, like, I have grown so much in the last few years, and it really is perfect. I own my life. You know,
I think,
one of the things about having this be public today is there's going to be people that I don't like that are going to get a hold of it and just pick it apart. And as opposed to being worried about that, it's like, you go for it. You all have fun. You all, you know, it's like
Yeah.
we all have people that are not our greatest fans out there. I am not living my life for those people. I am living my life. There was even a post I said that basically said, your greatest fans are strangers. And
Yeah.
a lot of your haters are people that used to say that they loved you. And
Ooh.
there is so much truth in that.
and the people that are holding us to who we used to be. So I know my sister will often raise something that I did at like 5 or 6. And like, are you really going to hold me to the person I was? Can't do the maths. 30 plus years ago.
Years ago, just say years ago.
My husband, I remember, it's probably 2 years ago, this instance is really clear in my mind. And I said something to him in the car, and he retorted with something that would have been accurate 2 or 3 years prior to that. And I was able to say to him in that moment, I said, that's not fair. You are making a judgment. You are holding me to the version of me from years ago. I haven't done that in over 12 months. I'm open to correction if I have done that recently. And his response in that moment was, you're right, that wasn't fair. That is me holding you to a version of you from long ago. And finding people that will allow us to grow and see our growth is really key. One of the reasons that I've got clients that have been with me for 4 or 5 years is that I see their growth. I'm not holding them to who they were when they signed up with me 4 or 5 years ago. I'm holding them to the version of them that they want to be today. And more accurately, I'm holding them to the version of the person they want to be tomorrow. Because I help
Exactly.
them on that growth, and I see and I recognize that growth, and I am a clean indicator, because our closest people, friends, family, don't always see that cleanly. Whereas as a coach, I have no agenda in their mission. I have I see cleanly. It's like, since we started working together, I've seen this transformation. We all need someone in our corner reminding us of that. We all need someone. So after the conversation with Angelito last week, where I was still quite heated and emotional, I spoke to my accountability buddy, and she paused me at one moment and she said, I just want you to reflect on how differently this is playing out to when something similar happened 12 months ago. See your growth, Amy. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to vent for a little bit longer. I'm still going to rant for a little bit longer. And then in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, remind me of my growth. We need people in our corner, because in that moment, I'm like, no, I don't want to hear how much I've grown. I'm pissed off. I want to tap into my passion and my anger right now and express that fully and completely. And about 5 minutes later, she says, like, do you feel complete now? I said, yes. She's like, can I now raise how far you've come? Yes, now I'm willing to hear it. We need people in our corner. And that could be a friend, it could be a coach, it could be whoever, but having someone in our corner to remind us of our growth is essential for us to be seen as the version of us we are now, rather than
Very,
the
very
version
true.
we were even a week ago. I know I've grown in the last week massively, but over the
Yeah.
last 10 years, it's like, you met me 10 years ago, and my sister taking me back to when I was 5 or 6. I'm like, are you kidding me? I am so far removed from that little girl now. It's just not
Well,
fair.
yeah. To add to that, in the context of being in proximity of people who lift you up, like, the question is, like, take a look around to see who you're surrounded by. Like, are you surrounded by people who support you in keeping you focused on your dream, or are you surrounded by people in keeping you focused on what you don't want? Right? Like, so it's your job to take ownership of choosing who you surround yourself with.
Yeah. And to add to that, so the dreams is what we're doing in the bringing to life. Are we with people that focus on who we are or who we aren't? Because those that can champion who we are, they're the people that are worth keeping in our lives.
On that note, if you're listening to this, take a look at the closest people around you. Do they lift you up? Do they hold you down? Are they the ones that assist you in making sure that you own the life you are creating? Or are they not having you do that? Or do they get into that victim mentality?
Yeah. How long do they
Beautiful.
tolerate your excuses, your blame, your justification before they
Yeah.
say, great, and now you're going to own your life?
It's so funny.
And you
because
want people that'll tolerate it a little bit. Like, that instant reframe isn't what we want either. You do
Right.
want them to be able to listen to you and allow you to vent and share, but put a
Yeah.
time limit on it.
I have a dear close friend, and we have to sit down and I'm going to have to tell her some very brutal things. And I haven't been able to do it up to now, simply because her life experience right now is so rough. I've told her I do not want to be the next person that's just, but it's like, there's going to have to be a day that we have to have a very direct conversation about some of your behaviors. And it's to me, that's a whole nother potential episode too, because being authentic with someone is literally a skill, because if you are asshole authentic, you are going to lose a lot of friends. But if you're compassionate and caring authentic, that is what is important. Yeah.
Yes. I think that is a great
Yeah.
conversation with
It's actually, it's a great topic for a future show. But yeah.
What topic is that again, real quick? I'm gonna write that down.
Well, so yeah, so authentic communication was in essence what you
authentic
just
communi-
said.
So that's
and
what we're
then
gonna
I
talk
would-
about next week. Next week is authentic
I'd add in
communication.
knowing when to shelve your agenda in that as well. Because I see too many people's like, I'm just communicating authentically without the ability to, and this is something my husband does so well, and I hate him for it and love him for it concurrently, because why should he be so wise without having done any of the personal development that I needed to become this wise? He
I
just
can't wait to meet that
knows,
man. That's all I gotta say.
he knows, and he was we were watching a thing on shelving the agenda, and he says, yeah, well, that's what you do. You just work out whose problem is bigger, and then he said, and 9 times out of 10, your meaning my problem was bigger. And so he would just put his needs aside in that moment and meet my needs. And I hadn't seen that for a long time. And now I do. And it's that bringing that balance. So communicating authentically coupled with the ability to shelve the agenda. I think that would be an awesome topic for next week.
So that is what we're gonna, I've actually written it down on my official notebook. And on that note, we're gonna wrap this show up. So just real quick, any closing words of wisdom for the people that have listened? Amy, we'll start with you, Angelito, and then I'll wrap this baby up.
Learn to discern between what is and what isn't, and be okay losing those labels. And I get that that's not easy, but losing those labels of this is good, this is bad, that's been the best way for me to own everything. When I don't judge it, it's like, this is, and how I choose to respond to it now is on me, but it
Brilliant.
is, and we can
Nice.
play in that space.
Brilliant.
Nice.
Angelito.
Well, we talked about a lot of things in this past hour on taking ownership, and you heard a lot of different perspectives and in a lot of different contexts. But I would invite you now to think about what taking ownership means to you, what taking ownership means as it applies to your personal life, your business life, your relationships, how you talk to yourself, the things that happen, the situation you're in, the things that happen to you and for you in life. And really start asking yourself that question: who am I? Who is the version of me who takes ownership of this particular moment in space and time? And start there.
Beautifully spoken. Adding on to both of that, I'm going to say something rather simple, is like, if you truly are owning the life you create, it might be time for a little evaluation. And if you need a course shift or a course correct, find a coach. We can assist you to literally live into an amazing life. On that note, thank you for listening to Empower Hour. It is you that make us shine. We will see you next week, probably about this time, an hour earlier, an hour later, but it'll be about this time. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.